will be about views. Now, before we go and talk about views and what they are and how it helps in solution architecture, um, I'd like you to take a little bit of a step back, right? And understand how we approach solution architecture. One way to approach solution architecture is based on a set of four fundamental views, but more importantly, solution architecture is actually based on stakeholder participation. Perhaps the older way of looking at solution architecture or IT solution for that matter was simply like, okay, I'm the expert in IT, therefore I know a lot about IT. I don't really care about what other people would be saying. Well, lo and behold, you will realize that that is not true. That is not possible. In order for you to have an adequate solution to whatever problem you might be having, okay, it is necessary that stakeholders are involved in crafting the architecture for your solution. Now, what are stakeholders? They are customer representatives who, okay, two things, who have the greatest impact on the project's success and who will be most affected by the project's results. Okay, so these are the two indicators of your stakeholders. Now, generally, your stakeholders can come from different functional areas, different teams, different organizations within a company, and they could be coming from different regions of the world, around the world. Assuming it's a global company, it can come from different levels of management. It can come from the rank and file or staff employees, or it can affect the CEO or the executive team, or it can even affect partner organizations. So it can affect your company and other companies that are allied or affiliated with your company. So these are examples of stakeholders. And without stakeholder participation, the success of the effort is doubtful. Now, now that we've settled the the forward, so to speak, or the introduction regarding stakeholders, now we go with the four views. Now, one way or one approach in looking at a solution is by looking at it in four different views. So you have the business view, the functional view, the technical view, and the implementation view. Now, one way for you to remember what view is applicable, you try to recall the specific questions or specific keywords, question keywords for each view. So, for example, the business view should answer the question why. Okay. Functional view should answer the question what. Technical view should answer the question how. And implementation view answers the question with what. Okay. So business view, why is the engagement being done? Why is this needed? Okay. Oh, why are we doing this? Why are they interested in this? Why are they scared of this? Okay. So that's business view. Functional view, what? Okay. So what will the solution do? What information will it provide? What qualities and services? Okay. What users? And when you're looking at functional views, you're actually not looking at any specific technology or product or implementation. It's really abstract, it's very generic, it's functional. Okay, so an example perhaps of what is functional would be if you're looking at accounting. Right now, when you think of accounting, well, you think of accounting in terms of its processes, in terms of some of the tasks involved, but it doesn't really tell you what accounting tools you'll be using or how you will actually implement those accounting tools or accounting software. All right, none of that in the functional view. Now let's go down to technical view. It should answer the question how. How will the solution be structured? How will it be constructed? How will it be constrained? How will it be managed? So in your technical view, this is where the IT flavor comes into the picture. So if you recall, perhaps in your BIS classes, when you look at an accounting solution, okay, when you look at the accounting function, you probably know that okay, there are accounting systems available. there could be some general ledger modules, or there could be some financial statement software that's accessible for the users. So that's the how. So in order for a user to utilize or do its work in accounting very well, then it would need the services of an accounting tool or accounting software for that to happen. So that's the how. That's the technical view. Okay. But the thing with technical view is that the brand or the specific product, like will you be using Excel? Will you be using SAP? Will you be using Salesforce? Will you be using Siebel? That's not technical view. That's actually the implementation view, with which answers the questions with what, right? With what products, with what services, with what tools, okay, and so on and so forth, will the solution be implemented? So if you really look at this from a pyramid, okay, the business view would be somewhat generic. It simply tells you the motivations, the drivers of certain things. And then when you go to the functional view, you look at the certain processes that are impacted, that are involved. And then you look at the technical views, you look at the process, the specific processes, the how, okay, the workflow, you start looking at these things. And then the implementation view would be only then would you be go specific to the product, to the tools, the services, everything. Okay. Now, and going back to the introduction earlier about stakeholders, so how do you identify the primary stakeholders for per view? So when you're looking at the business view, your primary stakeholders would be the business officers and managers of the company, a solution acquirer. So this would be somebody from purchasing or procurement. The business analyst would also be a stakeholder for the business view. When you look at the functional view, it could be your users, it can be your business process designers, maybe your information modelers. So this would be pertaining to your functional view. For technical view, your developers, your IT consultants, your subsystem suppliers. So generally, when you look at the technical view, this is where most of the IT people gravitate. Okay. And implementation view, this would be everybody else. So even your developers would still be here, but now you have your testers, your project manager, your deployers, and guess what? Even the users and the business managers and operators, okay, which were stakeholders in the earlier views, would also be your stakeholders for the implementation view. Okay. So take note that whenever you're trying to look at a solution according to a specific view, be it business, functional, technical, implementation, you have to be aware of what primary stakeholder group you need to involve when you are articulating that particular view. Now, when we talk about four views, it's nice to have a house analogy. Where we talk about architecture, an architect, we normally think about buildings, right? So it's nice to have a house analogy in this case. So when you talk about the business view, a question would be, why do I want a new house? Okay. And it can be a lot of things. You want a new house because your old house is a little bit cramped, or your old house is getting dilapidated, or you're starting a new milestone in your life. You're probably getting married or moving out of your parents' place. So that's why you probably want a new house. What about functional view? What should the new house give me? So if you're the type of person, depending on the event, okay, maybe the house that you're looking for would have certain features, right? But as you try to answer this question, what should the new house give me? You know that it's not that specific, not yet anyway. You just have a general idea on the functions or the features that you'd want your new house to have. Now, technical view, how will the house be built? Okay. Would it be possible that the house has already been built? Somebody has done it already. Okay, so do I just buy a house? Do I build a house from scratch? Meaning, do I buy a lot and then how do you build a house? Will you be building it yourself, or will you hire a contractor to build it for you? Right. So that's the idea of the technical view, the how. You try to answer the question how, and the implementation view with what? With what will the house be built? Okay. In general, if you're just buying a ready-made house, then the implementation is just simple. Okay, you buy it. You buy a ready house. Okay. Or if you're going to build it from the ground up, then more questions will have to be asked. Okay. So will you be getting a contractor? Okay. What's the name of the contractor? So now that's a specific question already. What's the name of the contractor? Okay. When do you want the house to be built? Okay, that's an implementation view. Okay, what should be the size of the house? How high will the house be? How many floors? Right. So now that's the implementation view. So when you look at functional view, it's really just about the features, the technical view. Okay, you try to understand how you will get that house. The implementation view is all the dirty, bloody details, right? So, who are your stakeholders in your house building analogy? Well, why do you want why do you want a new house? In this case, you need to have a sponsor. Okay. In the case of the house analogy, your sponsor can be yourself. Okay. So, or it can be your parents, or it can be your spouse. Okay, depending on the event. Okay, that would motivate the reason why you want to have a new house. Okay, functional view, what features should the new house provide? So this would pertain to the users. This would pertain to the end users, the ones who will actually be using the house. So the user can also be you, okay? Or it can be, let's say, your siblings, or it can be or your children later on, okay? If that's the case. So who will use the house? So the stakeholder for that would be the user. Technical view, how will the house be built? So this is the builder or the developer. Okay. And then with what will the house be built? So you have a deployer or somebody who goes ahead and then executes the building of the house. Now, when we go through the four views, okay, now each view answers particular questions and they're further expressed as principles, models, and standards. We will talk more about this later on in the succeeding modules, okay? But it's good for you to know that when you have the four views are supposed to be all encompassing. It's supposed to be comprehensive, and the four views try to answer different types of questions. So together, the four views actually enable the solution team, including the stakeholders, to understand the needs of all stakeholders. Okay. They also represent the consensus of the stakeholders and they describe and motivate the solution. Please take note that when you're looking at an architecture, it need not be a specific solution. It just simply provides some guideline on how the solution would look like. But in terms of the solution itself, your architecture is not the solution itself. Like in the house analogy, when you try to do an architecture for the house that you require, well, the architecture is not the house. So the solution in this case is the house itself. So by having the architecture, you have the seed or you have the initial preamble to the solution that you will actually arrive at. Okay. And everything that you will do, okay, in relation to the solution would have to be based on the architecture that you've built. So business view, why are we doing this? So these are some of the key questions relevant for business views. If you've noticed the magnifying glass at the right, this would pertain to certain system qualities. We'll talk about that in a while. But generally, uh, regardless of what quality you're looking at, okay, these are the questions that are related to the business view. Okay, that should answer the question why. So, what are the internal and external drivers? Was it because of a new law? Was it because of some event in the market? Was it because of some happenings with the owners? Okay, so that's one question. Or what are the business models and processes? Okay, what was their modus operandi? How they're operating? Okay, who participates in the business processes? Okay, what are the project goals? How will the success of the solution be measured? Why is the project important to you now? So that's something that you want to ask your clients as well. And what is so compelling that a new solution is needed? Why is the current solution no longer useful or no longer compelling? Okay. So why is a new solution needed? So all of these questions, the answers to which form part of your business view. Now, analogously, you can look at the functional view in this way. So, what should the solution do? So, the features of the solution. What will the completed solution do? How will it be used? And what services will it provide? What information will it provide? To whom? Who are the users? Okay. And what qualities must the solution have? So, these are your questions, answers to which will help describe your functional view, your technical view. Okay. So, how should the solution work? Okay, related questions. How will the solution be structured and constructed? What are the interfaces and other constraints? What applications and data are needed? Okay. What does the infrastructure look like? What technical standards will apply? How will the system qualities be achieved? Okay. So notice, okay, the answers to these questions will help answer the question how. How will the solution work? Okay. What are the guiding frameworks for it to operate properly? Okay, so that's the technical view. And lastly, your implementation view. With what will the solution be built? So what are the specific products and components from which vendors are needed to build the solution? So here, things are named. Okay, you're naming the product, you're naming the vendor, you're naming the components, very, very specific. Okay. Maybe using IT parlance, will I be using Windows or will I be using Mac OS? Will I be using Amazon or will I be using Azure? Okay. Will I be using, well, Canon or will I be using Epson for my printing needs? Okay. So you can be very specific already with the brands. And how will the solution be developed and deployed? Okay, so who will develop it? Okay, will it be this organization or that company or that supplier? How will it be deployed? Okay, what time frames are frozen or not available for deployment? What time frames are available? When will you actually roll out the solution? Okay, so these are things that will answer the questions to implementation view. So other things like testing, so what validation methods will be used, how will it be managed, and what is the source of funding? So who will pay for it? Okay? Will it be from 100% from the client, or will it be shared with a sponsor, or will it be through a grant, or are you willing to do it for free? I mean, these are questions that uh, you need to answer if you want to have a clearer picture of your implementation view. Now, remember, when you're doing solution architecture, it's not about business versus IT. It's not a tension between both sides. And ironically, this is what is seen in a lot of companies nowadays. You see the business side, fighting it out with the IT side, okay, and the IT side criticizing the business for not really understanding certain things. And take a look, okay, it's not about business versus IT. We're in the business, okay. I'm the side of the business, therefore, the only thing that I should be concerned about is the business view and the functional view. Or if you're the IT person, I don't really need to know the business. I don't need to know the functions. I should be okay with the technical and implementation view. No, no, no. That's not how it works. Okay, it's all about business and IT. So you understand that as an IT professional, it's not enough that you just know the IT side. You also have to know the business side of things. And nowadays, businesses, they can't just simply say that they don't know IT or they don't know technology. In fact, it is an important skill set for business leaders nowadays to have a good, acceptable comfort level when it comes to IT. So I'm sure in terms of jargon, in terms of vocabulary, your business leaders would know something about IT. Okay. Gone are the days wherein your business leaders wouldn't even know anything about IT. They probably have not seen a computer in their lives. No, that's not possible now. I mean, business should know IT, and IT should also know business. So these are the tensions that we have now. Okay, so that's the end of the first part of our presentation. And I will go with the second part. So just a sec. Uh, 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 uh. Okay. So with the second part of the presentation, we'll talk about things that would help give better clarity as regards your four views. So now that you have a general understanding of views, your next step is okay. Well, there are some architectural elements that you need to be aware of. Okay, uh, the fundamental architectural elements include drivers, goals, and metrics. So the business side, and they're very closely associated with the business view. Okay, and principles, models, and standards. So these are associated with each of the four views. Now, schematically, you can view it as something like this. You can view it as a matrix. Okay, your three elements, drivers, goals, and metrics, they're like outside. Okay, they're like the overarching elements for your entire framework. And normally they're really attached to your business view. So they're up there. But for the next three elements, principles, models, and standards, they actually populate all of your four views. So you will realize that there will be principles for the business view, there will be principles for the functional view, there will be principles for your technical view, and there will be principles for your implementation view. Same thing with models, same thing with standards. So that's why you can look at this as some sort of a matrix. Okay. Now your drivers, goals, and metrics would be the motivators. They were the ones who will provide context as to why you're coming up with an architecture. Um, so what are business drivers? Okay, so a business driver is a business condition or pressure that seeks the customer, sorry, that motivates the customer to seek a solution. So it's a motivator. Uh, it can be an opportunity or it can be a threat. So these are the types of business drivers. It can be a pain. Okay, it can be a weakness. Okay, or it can be a directive, like it's an instruction from a higher authority. Okay, or it can be an opportunity, something in the market that hasn't been capitalized. Okay, so these are examples. These are your types of business drivers. Now, what are examples of business drivers? Here are some samples. Okay, pain. Competitors are taking away our customers with web-based electronic commerce. Okay, or a pain would be the time to profit of new services takes too long. So this means that if I come up with a new service, in order for the new service to reap rewards for the company, it takes too long, maybe more than a year. And then it begs the question, is it worth it? I'm burning a lot of money. I'm not yet profiting from this new thing. Okay, so that's a pain. Companies are outperforming ours in e-commerce. So we are losing business. Okay, you can look at this from the perspective of social media. Okay, there are a lot of companies that are outperforming us in social media, and we're losing the market. Okay, so that's a pain. Okay, another pain is internal costs. Our internal costs are higher than in comparable industries. So if I have competitors within the same industry, our costs are actually higher than the others. Well, if you have higher costs, then that means that your profitability is lower. So that's a pain. Now, what about directive? Well, this normally refers to regulation or an instruction from a higher body. Okay, so new regulations require compliance by the end of the year. Okay. In fact, you can take a look at the current situation right now, the pandemic. Okay, so the pandemic really forced everyone to shift or pivot from their usual way of doing things. So that's a directive also, both a pain and directive. So the pain is okay, we can't do things that we used to do anymore, and the directive is that government will be telling us, okay, well, you need to run something right now. Okay, and this is the format that you will have to run it. Okay, contact tracing perhaps. Okay, or delivering classes. Okay, so that's a directive. Okay, another business driver is opportunity. Okay, so new acquisitions have given us access to new markets in 5 new countries. Okay, so events that have happened in the past, that allowed us to, yeah, go through doors that we haven't gone through before. And they promise a lot of positive things from that. Okay, so that's an opportunity. Now, what are goals? Okay, so a business goal is an objective of the solution, what the solution must accomplish in business terms. Okay, so initially you have the driver. Now, okay, your response to the driver is your goal. Okay, um, and that's what you want to happen. Okay, what the solution must accomplish in business terms. So the business goal should be relevant to the scope of the architecture, and it should be measurable. A goal that is not measurable is a little bit flimsy. It can be challenging, and in fact it can be wasteful. Okay, if you're not able to measure anything, how would you know whether you're progressing or not? Okay, so that's the challenge with goals. Now, for metrics, so this is the third architectural element, okay, related to the business view, is a business metric is what? It's a measure of the degree to which a goal is achieved, and it is a clearly measurable test for a business goal. So you can see that goals and metrics, they're really like connected, they're really associated with one another. You might even say that don't believe in any goal if a goal is not measurable, and don't believe in any metric or measure if it is not tied to a goal. Okay. Uh, what might be a good example to illustrate this difference or importance? Well, supposing, well, we see a lot of metrics in terms of how the pandemic has been affecting us. Okay. Well, the question about that is, okay, we have a lot of metrics, number of infected cases, number of deaths, number of recoveries. But the question that is open right now is those metrics that we're looking at. Okay, what's the goal? What's the goal behind those metrics? Are we looking to target a number? Okay, or maybe, yeah, maybe the target might be a little bit ambitious. So do we phase it out? Do we say, okay, in order for us to achieve this target, this ultimate target, this moonshot of a target, we have intermediate targets that we look forward to? Is there something like that? Okay, so that's one way for you to test it, right? Or on the flip side, if you have goals, okay, you want to help recover the economy. Okay, so how do you measure that? How do you measure that the economy has been recovered? Okay. And now going down to specific cases to a specific company, okay, in relation to the current pandemic, okay, what's the goal right now of the company? And how do you know that company is actually accomplishing or achieving that goal? Now, metrics are used as a key component of the acceptance criteria. So, in order for you to say that the solution is really the appropriate solution, well, you use your metrics adequately, okay? And they generally apply to the full scope of the architecture. So, everything in your architecture, there should be metrics, they should be measurable, and that's going to be the basis on whether your solution is appropriate, is fit for purpose or not. Okay. And later on, when you realize that based on the metrics, things are not doing well or it's not appropriate, then you find out. Then you realize, okay, this is what's happening. Okay. Now, here are some examples of metrics for the area of business agility. Okay, so you have time, you have range, you have ease. So time, speed at which changes can be implemented. So remember, this is business agility. So how fast the business can respond to certain changes in the environment. So time is a good metric for business agility. Range, the breadth of change that can be supported or introduced. Can you make changes in just one team, or can you make changes for the entire company? Okay, so your range can be a good metric of business agility. What about ease? Ease refers to the effort and cost. So two sub metrics, if you will. Now, the effort required and the cost required to introduce and support change, and risk associated with doing so. Okay, so that refers to ease. So how easy was it to actually introduce a change? Okay, was it really requiring a lot of effort, or was it just, requiring just a little bit of effort, okay, um, and the risks associated with doing so. Now, metrics for quality of service. So these are examples. They're pretty a lot. There are a lot, no? So you have availability, refers to percentage of time service is available for use. Okay, value, the business value of information, or the business value of data that you've collected from that solution. Cost. Okay, what's the cost per quality level? If I want to move higher in terms of quality, how much more do I need to spend? Okay, so that's the cost. Speed of information sharing across the value chain, so across the company within that particular process, how fast will data be exchanged? The range of the quality of service, okay, this pertains to the range of quality service types. So the number of quality levels or information types or both. You also have ease of controlling or changing quality of service levels on demand. Okay, so can I be more rigorous in my service or can I slacken a bit? Okay, so these are things that you would want to look into when you're talking about ease, quality of service. Now, metrics for risks. So you have value at risk or VAR. So you probably have heard of it in some cases. So the maximum possible loss for a given time horizon. So this is what is at risk, the value that is at risk, right? If something bad happens, then this is how much we lose. So that's the concept of VAR or value at risk. Okay. Now the flip side is gain at risk. So what is the maximum gain? Okay, for a given time horizon within a given confidence interval and for a specific action or project. So if something happens, what do I gain from that? Take note that risk is not all negative. Risk has just given itself a negative connotation because a lot of the risks that have been identified are typically negative in impact. But you do have positive risk, and that's also a risk. So if there is the risk that things will be better, then actually it's still a risk. Technically speaking, it's still a risk. It's a positive risk. Okay, so that's why you can have gain at risk. Okay, likelihood of risk. So the probability of a failure or other adverse event occurring. And mitigation factors, people, processes, and/or technology that can reduce, avoid, or compensate for adverse consequences. So these are examples of metrics for risk. Metrics for ROIT or return on IT investment. Okay. Gains from revenue enhancement, savings, from cost reductions or due to personal maximization. Okay. Value of new business opportunities and cost. Cost per transaction or sale, cost per employee, or cost of new solutions. So just a quick recap on this commentary, okay? There are 6 elements, okay? In architecture, you have your drivers, goals, and metrics. So these are your overarching motivations. And then in each of the views, you will need to have principles, models, and standards. We will unpack each of these elements as we go along, okay? And with that, I end the commentary for views. Actually, that's pretty much it for views. So do you have any questions regarding views?
None, sir.
None naman po so far.
Wala. Okay, sige. Okay, well, I will stop recording.